Hi, this is Chris. Welcome back to my layout. Today I'm going to be showing you a process video for my Mini Kit Monday series. This is layout number 1, and in this layout we'll be using the 9x12 sheet from paper number 1, the 4x12 sheet from number 4, and the 1x12 from paper number 2. So here I'm just picking out my background paper, which I'm going to use the brown, and I'm cutting off the branding strip. And because all these patterns are pretty busy, I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges with my Distress ink in walnut stain. So I'm just going to run through here and throw on a layer of that. It just breaks up a little bit of the pattern as you lay it on top of each other. So for this piece of paper, I'm going to place it to the bottom half of the page, and so the brown will show up above. And I did consider at one point flipping it over and using the brown polka dot, but I decided to go with what I originally picked out. So I've gone ahead and laid that down. And now what I'm going to do is grab a border strip off of the Billa Boulevard 12x12 sticker sheet. And it's in blue. And again, I'm picking this out just to give a solid back piece of color that will break up a little bit of these patterns as they lay on top of each other. So first I'm going to go ahead and ink this 4x12 piece with the apples on it. And then because sometimes the sticker sheets don't go to a full 12x12, what you're going to see is I am going to cut this in half, about 3 inches in, just so that the cut line is underneath the 4-inch strip, and that way if it isn't a true 12 inches, the cut will be hidden underneath the paper layer, and it will go all the way across my layout without having any gaps. So first I've gone ahead and inked it. Now here I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And then I'm just going to lay that scalloped edge along the top of my pattern paper. And you can see how that just gives the eyes just a little bit of rest between all the busy patterns. And it brings in a little bit of that blue color. Just straightening it out. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere that paper down. And then I'm going to leave the red. I was deciding if I wanted the red on the inside or the outside of the 4-inch strip, and I decided to leave it on the outside. So I'm adhering that down, and then I'm going to go ahead and adhere down the 4-inch strip. And in the end, you'll barely see that red strip. I think there's only a little piece of it that's poking out after I put all my embellishment clusters down. Now I did bring out a piece of this vellum text sheet just to see if it would look good breaking up again the busy patterns to the photos. And I decided it was just more chaos on top of the patterns. So I decided to go into my scraps and I grabbed a piece of this off yellow pattern paper that I had close at hand, and it matches pretty well with the mustardy or yellow that's in the apples. And I go ahead and use that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down and use that as my matting layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and also ink the edges of this as well. And it just has the picture stand up just a little bit. Now I'm just going ahead and start my clusters to see what I want to put in. The red wasn't quite the right red, so I went ahead and grabbed a craft tag that I had for my stash. And then I am able to find one of the Billa Boulevard or October Afternoon journaling cards that says Fabulous Fall. And I'm going to use that as a layering embellishment spot. I end up swapping out that tag for one that doesn't have a crease in it. I'll do that in a little bit. Now I'm just deciding if I want it to go over or under the tag and where exactly I want to place it. It does end up going underneath the October afternoon tag. So I'm going through the rest of the October afternoon tags, seeing if there was anything I wanted. I didn't see anything I was interested in. So now I'm going through the die cuts that I have from Echo Park, and I'm pulling out this Autumn Days and the tree. And then I thought about the hedgehog and using some of the critters, but I'm ending up going to pick, there's some cute little gnomes and mushrooms. I'm going to end up using those. And I'm going to build a cluster in the bottom right hand corner and then a cluster towards the top. And you're going to see me shuffle these around a bit as I try and find the perfect embellishments and locations to put these all. And I'm continuing to look. I again looked at the deer, I looked at some of the others, and some were too big, so then I pick out the gnome. And I am going to find a squirrel and put the squirrel at the top by the Autumn Days, but I end up replacing him with another gnome as well. And that tag I'm going to end up keeping, but I'm going to move it to a different location. And here's where I tried the deer, and he was just too big. Can't have the deer bigger than the tree. And I kind of felt the same about the autumn, or the squirrel. He'll sit there for a few minutes, but he's going to end up being replaced with a gnome as well. And I decided I like the pumpkin peeking out from behind. And then I like that, I'm going to end up using that little fall tag in a moment. And here's where I go ahead and switch the tag out behind. And then I decide I want the yellow tag to go in the upper right hand corner. And I like it up there, and that's when I'm going to grab the fall and put it on top of it. I'm not 100% thrilled, so here's where I switch out the squirrel for the gnome. And I liked how that little plaid was just another banner to go in the upper corner. And I decide that's enough of the die cuts, so I'm going to go ahead and start adhering everything down. Again, I am going to ink my photo cluster. And I'm pretty bad about inking. I don't ink it on everything, so you're not going to see me inking a lot of the die cuts. I think the only one that I end up inking is the Autumn Days, because the white on the white, it didn't stand out enough, so I will end up inking that one. The others I will just place down without adding additional ink. And here's where I'm going to go ahead and start adhering this lower cluster. So I'm starting with the tag, and I'm going to use a little bit of the embroidery twine to tie. And because it's thinner, I'm going to wrap it several times through the hole just to make it a little bit chunkier, and then just tie it off with a knot. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and grab my journaling card. And then before I was wanting to leave the squirrel on the left-hand side visible, but then I decided one squirrel was enough. So I'm just going to tuck it in all the way until it comes to the banner that says Fabulous Fall. And you still see the other squirrel on the other side, which is more than enough. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop up I tried gluing the gnome down first, and it just didn't look right. There was no dimension to it, so I'm going to put him on some foam adhesive and pop him up a little bit. So here I am cutting up a little bit of the foam. And I'm going to run it so that he's a little bit higher than the bottom corner of my picture cluster, but that he's still running, his hat will run along the edge of my matting. And then it looks, and he's not covering up the horse at that point, and he looks like he's part of one group. And now I'm going to go ahead and glue down the mushrooms. I'm going to take the tall one and tuck it behind, and then the shorter one I'm going to place towards the front and the bottom, tucking that in. Then I'm going to grab this little tag that says memories, and I decided I wanted to pop that up as well so that it goes a little bit above the gnome, and then it pops up over the mushrooms. And again, that just adds that little bit of dimension. So now I'm going to work on the upper right-hand cluster. I'm going to glue down the autumn tag, and then I'll glue down the plaid flag that's underneath it. And then I'm going to pop up the fall on some foam. So I'll glue that down. Now I'm moving over to the other side, and again, I thought the autumn days kind of blended in, so I added some of the Distress ink to the edges just to have it stand out a little bit. And I'm going to throw that on some foam adhesive as well. So I go ahead and glue that down, and then I start building my cluster. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that gnome and I'm going to put him underneath, and then I'm going to put the tag kind of angled behind him. I want it so that you can't see the sharp edges of the tag. And then I'm going to tuck the pumpkin behind them. And here is where I go ahead and tuck him underneath, and making sure that you can't see any of the edges. I try a couple different places first, but I end up liking it back there. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some more of that yellow crochet thread, and I'm going to cut off a little piece, and I'm going to again put some wrapped around several times in that tag. And then I'll go over to the cluster on the upper right and put some in the other tag as well, so that all three tags have the crochet thread in it. Now the tree, I wasn't quite sure where I wanted it. I tried it in the bottom, I tried it on the right hand side. I just didn't like it. It felt too separated from everything else. And then I thought, well, maybe I can put the hedgehog, but I didn't like how he was sticking out. And it was just too much of a gap between the gnome and him. So then I tried, moving it to the lower cluster, didn't like that. What I'm going to end up doing is putting it in the upper left-hand corner, and then what I'll do is I'll cut off the edges that overlap, and then it looks like it all belongs. And so it's gone from a cluster that was kind of separated and spread out to something that's more grouped, and now it looks more cohesive in that grouping. And here's where I'm going to go ahead and put that twine in. So I've gone ahead and added the twine to this corner. And now that I have the twine in, I'm going to start looking at my other little bits that I have. So I find some of these leaves that I've had in my stash for a long time. So I tuck one in each of the clusters. And I looked through and I was trying to find some buttons or something that would go on each of the clusters, but they just looked too chunky and just didn't look like they fit. It was looked more like I was just adding them for the sake of adding them. So I'll end up not putting any of them on, and I'll end up only using the leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and put those down with some popped up adhesive. And I looked at these enamel shapes, but I only had two, so I didn't use those. I like to have in three clusters. I thought about this button that with the epoxy, and I do lay him down for a minute and ended up pulling him back up. And again, I tried these buttons and I just didn't like the way they looked. So in the end, I will end up not even putting them on. I've tried really hard to find a place where I could put one of these clips, and unfortunately, I just couldn't find anywhere to make it work like that looked like it belonged. I thought about tucking it behind, but it just didn't go. So I'm going to end up not using these paper clips either. And so I throw them all back in my little bin, and then I pulled out some epoxy. I did look at my Nuvo drops, thought about using those, but I end up with the enamel dots instead. And they have a really nice blue, and I thought that would bring out the blue from the border strip and kind of pull that color out away from all the brown that's on there right now. So I'm going to throw 3 enamel dots in each of the corners. And you'll see that for like the big ones, I try and tuck those under some items, and it just doesn't make it look like it's so big. So it kind of is a nicer look if you don't like the large enamel dots. I used one of each size in each corner. And then I went through the sticker sheets that I have and found the Simple Stories sticker sheets. You'll see me bring out in a moment. And with those, what I'm going to do is write my title for Pioneer Days. And this is a fall festival that we go to every year with my family. It's really nice. It's a lot of volunteers that go out and reenact the ways of the pioneers. So you have your people that they basically live for the weekend out in the park and have their tents, and you have the iron workers, and you have the people with the spinning wheels, and the gentleman that's making the bullets, and they have wonderful food, popcorn. It's a great event to have the kids go to see what it was like for the pioneers back in the day. And it's become one of our fall traditions to be able to go to this weekend event. And it's usually beautiful weather. The leaves are usually just turning. So I wanted to document that on this with this layout. So now that I've got Pioneer Days almost down, I'm then going to go through the rest of the Simple Stories sheets, and I'm going to find over on that label sheet there's a green one, and what I'm going to do is take that green label and I'm going to split it in half, and I'm going to tuck a little bit above underneath that Autumn Days just to pull a little bit of the green up there, and again break up that stark white. And then I'm going to tuck the other half underneath the Fabulous Fall journaling spot, again to bring a little bit of color down there. And then I'm going to go through the words, and I find a few that I like. The I Love Fall, and then a perfect time to use the hayride stickers is when you're actually doing a layout on hayrides. So I pulled a bunch of those in. You'll see I'm going to add one up to the pumpkin. So I have I Love Fall and hayrides. And then I get out the little word stickers, I'm going to end up finding two of those. One that says, "Hey y'all, it's fall," and I'll put that one on top of the memories. And then I have another one that says, "Hay rides." And I'm going to put it up on the fall, but after I'm done filming this, I'm actually going to move it down on top of the autumn days and have it autumn days hay rides. I didn't like how it was covering up the bottom of the L, and it actually made it look like the word fail. So we don't want a failed hayride. We'd rather have an autumn days hayride. So in the end, that one's going to be moved over after I'm done filming. And I also put in, there was a little sticker that had the 3 leaves. I put him on top of the gnome in the bottom right-hand corner. Then I go through this very, very old word sticker sheet that I've had in my stash for probably 15 years or so. And I find one that says "going for a hayride." So I end up using this one, and I'm going to put that on the top of the photo. I'm just reading through all of them just to make sure there's not anything better that I like. And I'm going to trim up the edges just a little bit to get the color off from the other stickers that were next to it, and just to make it a little bit thinner than it was. And so here I'm going to go ahead and put it above the photo, just tucking it under the Autumn Stay label. And that's going to be it for my layout. Here's a closer look at everything. It was really easy to use this formula, and I hope you join along. Please subscribe and like if you liked my video. Thanks.